Jordan Travis has all the ability in the world, but sometimes he makes the more difficult decision that leaves yards on the field, right? Like he doesn't get some rushing yards there. He maybe takes a more difficult pass deeper than the safer underneath that would produce yards. It's just yards left on the field that I think he would reflect back on and say, I wish I'd have made a better decision.
It's third and Nole. We came together, all three of us reaching for one common goal. This is our show. Listen, you might get perspective of something that you didn't know. We gonna go all the way real with the topics. When you see Whitty, P. Austin, and Crockett, pressure good blisters, we stay in the pocket. Picture the run to the quarterback option. Organic process, listen and watch us. Everyone welcome, this is our casa. First and goal, second we throw. Short a few yards, third and Nole. Third and Nole.
Crockville, 4-0, undefeated in September, coming home from Death Valley, Clemson, South Carolina, victorious. Man, look. Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. Man, 4-0.
Well, I mean, so the game didn't start out great, did it? I don't think starting out in a 10-0 hole deficit was not ideal.
Yeah, I'll jump right in here and say we're 4-0. I didn't have us 4-0 at the very beginning of the season. So overall,
how dare you?
Overall, I'm pleased. I'm pleased. I'm happy to be 4-0. Having said that, I'm so tired of the way we start games. Like we know how to respond. I said it in the thread. I'm ready to see us attack. Like, I'm tired of us fighting back. I want to see us attack. And I haven't seen that yet.
We do typically start well on offense in games, right? Didn't they said during the game, statistically, we had like 11 straight halves, first half or second half beginning with a score, something like that. And then obviously that changed this time.
Yeah, the half. But I mean, LSU, I don't think we scored the first drive at LSU.
We did.
We did. No, that's what they're saying. Not half as in halftime, but like,
I'm sorry, quarter. Did we our first drive we didn't score against LSU, did we?
We did.
We did.
And then what about well, defensively we don't. Okay, let's start off with that.
No, I get it. I get it. So I mean, there's so many ways we could take this podcast. I really want to focus. There's a couple of negatives that we can call out, but let's keep this one pretty positive. And for our listeners, just due to our producer editing this, it may be a little bit briefer than normal. Maybe. We'll see. Fingers crossed for that, so we can get it out to you guys in time. But let's talk about it. So defensively, we had a slow start again. And we were seeing some of the same issues that I think carried over from, the worst part of, let's call it Boston College, right? Like, we had receivers running open, albeit their receivers were just making some ridiculous catches. But there were just some lapses in coverage that you would hope that we wouldn't see this many years into Fuller's defense, right? So what are your thoughts about how we started, especially defensively?
Initially I was happy because for the first time we didn't give up a chunk play on the first play of the game. But that was immediately followed by just, 5, 8, 12-yard gains, play after play after play. And once again, the whole world knows the strengths and weaknesses of the quarterback, yet we almost come out and play them straight up and say, let's see if we can out-athlete you. That was my problem.
Yeah, I wasn't able to watch the game live, but when I did get a chance to watch it, we just didn't take anything away from them. From my observation, successfully.
I would argue you took away, in my opinion. Now, what's his name? Maffa. Maffa had some great runs, but we took away Shipley. Like that kid's a legit talent, right? As a runner. He's a legit talent, and he didn't do anything.
As a runner.
I agree, but I don't think we had to schematically. We didn't have to do anything to take him away. Like our front four against the run,
Elite.
Against the run, our front four, they are elite. But when you are chipping verse and sometimes doubling verse, and Peyton's not, the speed rush isn't working, for the second week in a row, we wait until the third quarter to make the necessary adjustments.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that we can talk about the second half in a second. I will say that first half, and we've been talking about Trey Benson and not necessarily favorably the last couple of weeks, right? I thought that this was his best game this year. Statistically, he didn't have a ton there, but just the eyeball test, watching him run, I felt like there may have only been one time that I specifically remember him dancing. But I think early in the game, I think he set a tone by running hard, like we saw in the second half, like we've been calling for him to do. He ran really, really hard. And again, didn't always have the greatest results, but he didn't stutter step, he didn't dance, he didn't tiptoe. He hit the hole.
I agree. Best game this season for Trey Benson. I agree. 1,000%.
Hey, and I would also say possibly the best receiving game of his career. Mm-hmm. Just in the catches that he made. I mean, unbelievable. Shout out to Trey Benson catching the ball. Shipley had 18 carries, 67 yards total, 3.7 yards per carry. He did have one 16-yard run, and that was it. And Maffa, so he had 10 for 69 for 6.9 yards a carry, which is pretty good, but he had that 146-yard run, right? So you take away that 46-yard run, and he's 9 carries for 33 yards. Again,
that's good.
Our rushing defense is elite.
It's the secondary.
It's the secondary.
Well, it's the pass defense.
Yeah,
I'll take that.
I take that. And so my thing is, because coming into this game, like I feel like there are 2 or 3 games a year that you can say, all right, we need to blow this team out. If we don't, it's not good. But then I feel there's games like Clemson. And I said it before, even though I know I predicted a 2-score win. But at the end of the day, I didn't care how it looked. I honestly didn't. I don't care if we played worse than we did against Boston College. If you tell me we played worse, but we're walking out with a W, I'll take it.
We all were happy. At the end of the day, we all were happy. And still am happy.
Absolutely.
And I think for some reason, schematically or just assignment, guys doing their tasks, we just start off slow defensively. And my thought process was, I'm not stressing if it's a close game because Fuller does make great second half adjustments. Mm-hmm. So if I'm thinking back to LSU game, that's why I'm able to stay calm. I'm thinking back to the LSU game. We had a slow start, defensive. It was long. Just stay in the game, stay in the fight. We're gonna be okay. I would just like to see 3 quarters of football. I mean, 4, wow, but 3 good quarters of defensive football and offense too. I know we'll dive into some of that, but the offense kind of wasn't able to put points up for a season. So,
well,
Phil, I agree. But I'm not going to. I'm going to leave the rest of my defensive comments for when you get to the second half.
Yeah, I mean, and really, the first half was there really wasn't a lot of noteworthy stuff. What I will say about the first half was Trey Benson ran hard. He caught the ball amazing. Trey Benson had a phenomenal game. Again, the stats may not have been just incredible. Well, I take that back. He had 3 catches for 50 yards, 16.7 yards per catch, right? That's good.
I wouldn't have thought that. I wouldn't have thought that before the game. Going into the game, he was going to be impactful.
7 carries at 25 yards total for 3.6 yards per run. That's not going to blow your socks off, but I mean, he ran hard. The eyeball test said that he did what he had to do, but he caught the ball great. Again, shout out to Trey Benson. It was his best game of the year, and hopefully a sign of things to come. First half, and they talk about like the last 8 or the last 4 and the first 4, right? So how you finish a half and how you start a half. So we get a touchdown late with Keon Coleman to make it a 10-7 game, and knowing we get the ball back. So I think the clock control at the end of the first half allowed us to be in a position to get the score and then not leave them with a bunch of time to do something before we were going to get the ball back in the second half. And quite honestly, there's so much that we can talk about in the second half. I'm kind of good with skipping straight to it, especially in an abbreviated podcast. Y'all go with that?
Yeah, I mean, only thing I would add is any anxiety I had went away when we scored right before halftime.
I agree with that completely. Completely. Now, hey, up to that point, I was nervous.
Yes.
And I was nervous too. I'll be honest with you. When it was 17-10, again, fast forward to the second half, and they had the ball driving, I was a little nervous then, but we'll get there. So we come back, and we gave Ryan Fitzgerald a hard time last year, as did most Florida State fans. I called him my second half comeback player of the year last year. Man,
oh boy.
No, for real. We all need to give kudos to that young man because he has done nothing but make his kicks and do great on kickoffs. Like Ryan Fitzgerald has done an amazing job this year.
Agree.
And if you look around college football, point out somebody that's doing better than Ryan Fitzgerald is right now. You won't find one.
No, he's doing amazing.
5 for 5, kicked a 48-yarder. It was I was nervous. I was nervous.
A 48-yarder at Clemson, right? Mm-hmm. Like one of the most hostile college football environments in the country. That was a huge moment. And I think that bodes well for the rest of the season for him because he can he got the yips last year or whatever it was. Something was in his head. And it was planted early in the season that he was having difficulties. Well, I think the opposite can hold true this year. He can look back at this game saying, I made that big kick when it mattered to tie the game in Clemson. I think he carries forward and has a great rest of the year. So going into the second half, and Croc, you're so right. We have made amazing defensive adjustments in the second half. And it almost seemed like in the first half, we were content with letting our front 4 stop the run, which they did, and seeing if Klubnik could beat us passing the ball, which he was. I was impressed with him as a quarterback because he got hit a lot throughout the game and stood tall and was making passes. He didn't look like a Heisman contender, but for somebody in his second season and his sixth start, I thought he looked pretty damn good.
Yeah, I think he definitely stepped up and had a great game. I would have liked for us to do maybe a little better job of some press coverage. It seemed like guys was just killing us on slants, and I don't know. I felt like the coverage could have been a little tighter, especially with the injuries they had. Our receiver, just still seeing our DBs just getting kind of sliced up like that. It was. I think that was the biggest shock from the defense for me because all week long I had been hearing how the wide receiver core wasn't exciting but they were getting open on us.
I agree, but I think Florida State was willing to give you the middle of the field if you beat the DBs to the middle of the field. And anybody not named Renardo Green was getting beat to the middle of the field. Mm-hmm. And that's what we chose to give up. And talking about the second half, you started to see not even a little bit. Like I think I heard somewhere like first half we blitzed 10% of the offensive plays Clemson ran. The second half we blitzed on 40%. So Adam Fuller definitely picked it up. But my thing is statistics tell us Klubnik struggles under pressure and when he has to get rid of the ball quickly.
Correct.
So why are we waiting until the second half to put that type of pressure on him? And that was one of my two issues in the second half with the defense. However, dialing up the blitzes definitely worked, and the defense stepped up second half. But it's like the same thing I said last week. Great defensive coordinators, great defenses don't wait until halftime to make those type of adjustments.
Agree.
I'm gonna come out. I'm gonna take your strength away from you, and let's see what you do then.
I agree. So, when we talk about kind of the unsung heroes, I mentioned Fitzgerald, also Mastromano. I mean,
Beast.
Our kicking game is just really good, and it's something Jimbo used to talk about. The all three phases. Mastromano had 6 punts, average of 49.3, and he had one that was 59 yards. I mean,
and he had one that was 32. He had a 32-yard punt and still averaged 50.
Isn't that crazy? I mean, just unbelievable.
Yeah, the specialists really they showed up. It really played at an elite level. And kick coverage too. I did
kick coverage was good.
I did see one thing that was a little alarming. I didn't realize that Shaheem is on some of the kick coverages.
Most of our starters are on kick coverage.
Yeah, but we're extra thin at safety.
I agree. But even if you look like on kickoff, like you're always going to see
Thomas.
one of Tatum or Kalen out there.
I'm just saying, all of that is true.
Hey, point taken, Croc. I hear you.
I feel you.
Let's talk a little bit. We've talked, the second half, we tie the game up at 10. They march right down and score a touchdown to go up 17-10 and then hold us. Let's talk a little bit about some of the things.
It was 17-7. Remember, we went into the half 17-14.
Oh, that's right. But here's my thing. Jordan Travis, if this team is going to go where we think they have the talent to take them, they have the roster to take them. They may not necessarily always have the coaching to take. They have the second half defensive coaching to take them. I'm going to need to see Jordan Travis run the ball. Now, apparently it's come out since the game that he retweaked his injury from Boston College early in the game, and that may have affected his willingness to run. But Phil, you and I were texting during the game. There was a pass to Johnny that he threw up the 50-50 ball, right? And he said after the game that he feels a 50-50 ball is not 50-50, right? And that's his go-to. But he had an easy first down at a point in the game where we absolutely had to have it. We needed that first down.
Yeah.
And he had grass in front of him. And we need him to run.
I saw that play and feel like you said, Bell even saw it and turned the block.
Right.
Like he kind of shielded the man off. So
Jordan Travis is our guy. I just feel like I get it that you're hurt, so I don't want to seem insensitive to that. But if you're out there and somewhat well enough to run design traps, then you can run for 10 yards and get out of bounds.
And get down and get out. Yeah.
And
hey, you can run for that 10 yards to get out of bounds when there's 20 yards of grass in front of you. That was the thing that got me.
Both of us, because you text immediately, and I'm like, dude, because I noticed it as well. And I'm like, is it me? Like, am I tripping here? Like,
I think on that particular play, I don't remember down and distance, but let's say it was like 3rd and 8, right?
It was a first down play.
Was it a first down play?
I thought it was a first down play. Bell peeled back, and then he overthrew Johnny Wilson on the sideline because the very next play he took a deep shot on the other side to Coleman.
Ultimately, it was a play where we needed the yards, we needed the possession to go well for us. We needed to produce offensively. And that particular play ended up being not a negative because we didn't lose yards, right? But we lost it down on an incomplete pass where we could have gained minimum 7 or 8. Minimum. And that's playing super conservatively. That's jogging out of bounds. It was just really frustrating at that point in time to see him take that. And there's hidden yards throughout the course of a game that's what a Heisman quarterback does, right? And I think that's my comment in the text is like Jordan Travis has all the ability in the world, but sometimes he makes the more difficult decision that leaves yards on the field, right? Like he doesn't get some rushing yards there. He maybe takes a more difficult pass deeper than the safer underneath that would produce yards. It's just yards left on the field that I think he would reflect back on and say, I wish I'd have made a better decision there.
I think in the room, in the QB room, while they're watching film, he's admitting that. But in the interview, it seems as though he's completely satisfied or content with taking those 50-50 or, non 50-50 shot plays that he takes. If we go back to that LSU game, one of the reasons why the offense, those 50-50 shots were made on such an elite level on that particular game. But it was the first game of the season in LSU. They were fearful and they respected his legs.
Yes.
And until we make them respect Jordan's legs, passing is going to be more difficult for this team. The moment they make him, teams have to play him honest, everything is easier. Everything is easier.
I totally agree. Because one thing I think that reared his ugly head is that when teams, I don't think we gave enough credit to his legs as far as how it affects the rest of our run game. We felt like we had an offensive line that even if his legs weren't a threat, we could hand it off and they would get the push. And I'm not so confident we have that after 4 games because it's ugly. But my biggest concern, and I'm really looking forward to the Virginia Tech game because it's about Jordan Travis's involvement. Right? I equate it to a basketball player where the only thing they can do is dunk. And then after one summer, they add handles. Then after the next summer, they add a jumper. But now all they want to do is shoot 3-pointers, right? Instead of putting it all together. Jordan Travis was a quarterback we had to scheme for him to get his rushing yards and his passing yards. Then last year, he became a player that could spread the ball around. But then he became elite and gained a second elite receiver, and he could throw that thing deep. But it's almost like now that he can throw it deep, he's forgotten that the great quarterbacks leave the game with completions to 7, 8, 9, 10 different people.
Which is exactly what he did last year, right? Like
what he did last year. I mean, we were going to halftime saying he has completions to 6 different people.
Yeah.
But now I think he had 30-something attempts and over 75% of them went to 2 people.
Yeah,
including incompletions.
There were 6 players that actually caught balls. And 2 of the 6 were running backs, 2 of the 6 were tight ends, and then there was Keon and Johnny Wilson were the only wide receivers that had receptions.
And how many catches did they have?
They had 10.
10. And how many incompletions do you think he threw towards them 2?
Oh man,
in addition to that,
too many.
And that's my problem. You have 2 guys in the slot that can take a 5-yard catch and turn it into 20 or 80.
Yes.
And you're hurt.
Yes.
So that should be your primary target.
I get it. And I don't want to turn this into a Jordan Travis bash fest because we love the kid, right? Like
I'll never bash Jordan Travis.
We just think there's some yards he leaves on the field and he makes the game more difficult than it should be. So for himself. So
we're huge JT fans,
and that's why it's painful because
we've seen it. And your analogy,
we feel like he's a Heisman winner. He's a Heisman candidate, and I feel like he's selling himself short.
I agree with you. He will be the determining factor whether or not he's in New York City for that ceremony. Mm-hmm. And your point, your analogy about the basketball player was so good, right? Like, because at first he was the running quarterback and then he could spread the ball around. Now he's got the deep threat and now he's only relying on deep threat. And he seems to have, I get it, maybe not abandoned the running part because he's hurt. That's fine. Take the easy yards if they're there. But like, we still need to see the ball spread around, because I feel like if your last name is not Bell, Coleman, or Wilson, you really didn't get targeted. And Benson caught some great passes. Toafili had a couple. Morlock had a couple. But man, I tell you what, let's move on. Let's move on.
I do want to say one thing, so.
Shoot.
Blue chips. I think the transfer portal has been a huge addition to us. We're where we're at because of it. But I think there's one position group where blue chips matter, and that's on that offensive line. You know, we've been able to get guys who are upgrades in what we had, but we're not able to move the line of scrimmage. And until we get some guys, they can still be transfers, but I don't think at this point we've seen a lot of successful transfer portal O-linemen that weren't blue chips come in and make this huge impact that we really need on the line of scrimmage. So until we get our blue chips that we've recently recruited, developed, or we get some in here, I think we're going to have challenges on the offensive line, on the line of scrimmage, in the rushing game in particular.
I don't disagree with that, Croc. I think you're right. Now the good news is we've gotten some of those guys, right? Like I feel like we've had, whether it be Julian Armella or Jalen Early, some of these guys
Simmons.
Lucas Simmons, Otto. We have the guys to get that done. I agree with you. It's just, man, and you're right. I don't want to say anything negative about our offensive line because they do pass block pretty good. And I think that this group is a better unit than it was last year when we ran block really well. I think that maybe due to some injuries, we're still trying to figure out the chemistry. So I'm not, the jury's still out. And I think that having a bye week this week is ideal.
Huge. It's enormous.
It's a big deal. And so I agree with what you're saying, Croc. I think that I'm not willing to sell them out just yet or sell them short just yet based on what we've seen thus far. Because again, I think the injuries has a lot to do with what we've seen. So we're at a point where going down a second touchdown would be awful. They get the ball back. The first play from scrimmage is an incredible run. I mean, 40 yards, 45 yards. It might have been that 59-yard run that he had, whatever it was that Maffa had, just unbelievable. It was a 46-yard run. And I'm thinking at that point in time, oh, not now, right? Like, we started blitzing Klubnik. We're looking fairly good on defense, and then we give up that huge run. And I felt like at that point, if we went down 2 scores, it was going to be hard. Now, I don't know if you guys saw this, but apparently Kalen DeLoach was doing an interview on the ACC network, and he said one of the safeties audibled to that blitz. Now, if you watch the replay, I think it's Kevin Noles, and we've given him his fair share of grief this season. But I think it was Kevin Noles that you see turn his head and start waving his finger right before the ball is snapped. And by the way, this is a perfect time to bring up. If you haven't watched the cinematic recap of this game,
amazing.
Go do it, man. Go watch the cinematic recap. It is incredible. In fact, I think we can put it. We are now on YouTube. We have a YouTube link, and I think we can drop that cinematic recap in the notes as a link because it is just unbelievable. If you haven't seen it, watch it, please. But so Noles, I believe, calls an audible. Kalen DeLoach comes in like a missile, and arguably the biggest play of the last. I mean, I don't even know what this game looks like if that play doesn't happen. And we've said this is one of the biggest games that Florida State has had in years, right? If that play doesn't happen, I don't know that Florida State wins the game, but it does, and we go down to tie the game up. Just an incredible play by Kalen DeLoach. Hits Klubnik, scooped it up. Braden Fish showing the wheels. Braden Fish showing that 4.240.
He didn't show the hands, but he showed the wheels.
That's a good one.
Man, but man, Kalen DeLoach had a straight up convoy going down to the end zone with him. There was nobody touching him. He had a line of blockers.
Man,
what an enormous play! What was your thoughts, Phil, when that play happened?
I'm going to be honest. So me and my child are in the house watching it, and they're marching after another. I think it was a 3 and out, and so at this point, I'm thinking, at worst, even at worst, we have to only give them a field goal because Jordan Travis isn't running, and I don't like how this is looking right now. We need to stop, turnover, hold them to a field goal. I still have faith that we can win this game. And, you see things start to develop, and it's like I see Deloach blitzing, but he's blitzing from so far out. I'm like, he's not going to get there. And he gets there. And me and my son proceed to run around the living room screaming. Because at that point, it's a tie game. And I am so personally, once we tied it back up, I said the game's over. There's no way we're losing it.
Hey, Coach Norvell says we're built for this, right?
Hey.
And I just that play was just unbelievable. Unbelievable play. Unbelievable play.
Yeah.
So, Brock, what was your thoughts with it?
Yeah, I think you said something. I think that was the biggest play, impactful moment. I would say going back to, I don't remember what year it happened, but I think it was Clemson and Carlos Williams made that run in. I can't remember.
That was 14.
Like what that play did, man. It was remarkable. So great audible. If the safety did make the audible, like Kalen said, great job. And again, you see the second half guys just playing, good defense, making those adjustments and making plays, getting turnovers. We heard all over offseason the emphasis on the turnovers, and the ball bounced our way, and we took advantage of that.
Yeah, man. So we tie the game up there. We get a big stop. I felt watching the game that Sean McDonough and McElroy, especially Sean McDonough, I like him as an announcer, but if they would have not hyped up the Disney story that was that kicker, he probably would have made the kick. I mean, they were just setting that thing up like just in a fairy tale position. Like, great story, but come on, man. I just I don't know. So he goes down, he misses the kick, and we go to OT. Now, before we get to OT, man, let me say something. The flag that they threw on Renardo Green,
that was trash.
Trash. Absolutely trash. I mean, not almost. It was worse than the flag they threw on Bethune in the end zone.
Yeah, that was bad. The Bethune was bad.
Renardo was just, that was the ACC officials. ACC officials at their best.
Well, the problem I had with it is the game was Saturday at noon, and the flag didn't hit the ground until Tuesday. Like,
I'm trying to tell you.
The play was over. Like, the guys were running to the sideline, and so, and then all of a sudden the flag comes. But
phantom flag.
The Clemson player was falling down, and grabbed a hold of Green. Green tried to keep him up, tried to keep himself upright. Mm-hmm. And then it was an uncatchable ball. And on top of all of those,
it was all bad.
It was all bad. It was just kind of crazy, man. Like I just had to call that out because it was
criminal.
It was mind-blowingly bad. So we go into OT, man. Keon Coleman doing Keon Coleman things. God, I love that guy. I mean, just went up and got it, and we needed it. And I'll be honest with you, man, after I know the ball was tipped. I know the ball was tipped on their ensuing drive in overtime on the fourth down play. But I was waiting for the bus to be loaded up to feel comfortable with a flag not coming in late again.
Same.
I mean, I had moved on to the Colorado game, the Colorado Oregon game, and I was afraid they were going to come with some ESPN breaking news about a flag was being enforced in the Florida State game. So, guys, just an incredible win. Florida State escaped September 4-0. Shout out to Phil. You were the only one that called a 4-0 September. Florida State has had the toughest September schedule. They are undefeated. And in 2 consecutive weeks, they dropped in the rankings. That's stupid. I don't understand it. It's ridiculous.
I'm fine with it.
I'm with him.
And the reason why it seems like this team is at its best when it has to respond. So hopefully it's some motivation for them to, just to come out and try and put it all together. But 4-0 September, if you're mad, something's wrong with you.
I agree. I just feel like it's all come out in the wash.
All that matters at this point in September, there's a lot of football left to be played. Florida State controls its own destiny. Do we do fantasy?
We do. However, we never got an update from last week.
I got you, fam.
Yeah, go ahead and check that out. While you're pulling that up, one thing that was also as criminal as that flag was them showing a list of Dabo's teachers from kindergarten all the way through high school during the broadcast. Don't understand that or the purpose behind it. So one thing I will say and give credit to is Coach Norvell. A few years ago, we gave him a lot of grief about his clock management. And I believe at the end of the first half and second half, his clock management was amazing. He even had a point towards the end of the game where, they were like, Norvell has to really think about calling the timeout, and I'm not sure why he's not calling one. And he waited, and he called his timeout at the correct time, and then proceeded to outcoach Dabo, who thought it would be smart to throw the ball and stop the clock when he really could have ran it even lower. And so I think it shows not only his growth and the growth of the team, but that's something a few years ago, Norvell, as far as clock management, may have not done as good of a job, but he killed it Saturday. He killed it.
That's a great point, Phil. Thank you for bringing that up because it's one of those things you kind of take for granted, but we did share frustrations in the past about that, right? And you're right. He did an elite job of calling it in this game. So let's talk a little fantasy. We'll close this out. So we did not update Boston College because we did our show while I was still in Boston. I didn't have my computer with me to look everything up. So Boston College week, third place for Boston College week, Croc had 44 points. His high scorer that week was Kalen DeLoach. And so he was in third place with 44.
I'm just shaking my head because I know what DeLoach did this past week.
We'll talk about that in a minute. Second place was actually me with 48 points, so it was close.
Let's go. Claim the week, baby. Claim the week.
I had DJ. DJ got me 18.
DJ.
A solid effort. And Jaheim Bell had a good day for me with 18 as well. So, Jaheim and DJ got me 18 apiece. Got me 48 for the team. And first place for the week, Johnny Wilson leading the way with 14 points. Phil had 49 points. So when we pivot over to Clemson, and then I'll give you guys
climb, baby, climb.
Third place and second place. Third place and second place. Phil and me, 41 points each.
I like it.
Phil had 14 with Johnny Wilson. Keon had a good day for me. But the winner of the day.
And new.
This dude.
And new.
So Phil and I both had 41 points. Brock had 61 points on the back of Kalen DeLoach with a sack, forced fumble, touchdown combo. My man got him
so
points.
Oh my goodness.
Climb.
Pat Payton had a good day for you. with a couple sacks and
He did get a sack.
TFL. Renardo Green had a pretty good day for you, just with his tackle numbers and PBUs. So let's
Farmer got me a sack.
He did. So total points. Third place after week 4. Bill, 157.
Keep climbing.
Second place.
Keep climbing.
Second place, myself, 214.
And new.
Oh yeah, we're closing the gap, baby. Closing the gap, baby.
Put some respect on my name.
Closing
And new.
the gap.
And the leader.
The new leader.
The new leader. Brock.
New leader. He was a new leader last time we talked about this. Why we keep saying new leader?
No, he wasn't. He wasn't. Last time we did it,
I was in second place.
228. So after all that, he's only got a 14-point lead. Yeah, it ain't nothing.
Oh.
Haters gonna hate. Haters gonna hate.
That's it.
Haters gonna hate.
Listen. So Clemson, we took care of business in Death Valley. We're 4-0 coming out of September. We have a bye week. I think what we need to do with a bye week coming up, they just announced today that Virginia Tech is our next game. It's a home game on the 7th of October, 3:30 kickoff. I think our next podcast, we need to do some grades, grading position groups, grading some players as a bye week. It's just a good time to do that. Through 4 games, where do we grade the units and the players? So just be thinking about that, because I think that's something we can do in a bye week before we have our game against Virginia Tech. So anyway, gentlemen, it feels so good to be 4-0, top 5, controlling our own destiny. Let's go.
I love it.
It's good to be a Nole.
Hey, Mr. Fantasy Champion, you want to take us out?
September is coming to a close, and we're 4-0, baby. Only one of us had that called in the offseason. Phil, again, you have had great faith in this team, and we're just going to continue to climb. So with that being said, enjoy the bye week. You'll be hearing from us real soon. Go Noles. 3rd and Nole.
Yeah.
We out.